Okay, welcome to another episode on the Maritime Careers and Training podcast. Today we are looking at getting over the line, what we're calling the endpoint assessment process, which is part of apprenticeship standards in the UK. So the apprenticeship standards are currently governed by the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, and they're normally built with what we call standards, which are sort of built in conjunction with employer groups, what we call trailblazers. And I'm really pleased to say that today we have two special guests on the episode. We have Andrew Barrett, who is an independent assessor for the boat building apprenticeship and the marine operative apprenticeship. And we also have Owen McIntee, who is the EPA and training coordinator currently at British Marine. So, Andrew, could I just get you to sort of briefly introduce yourself, a bit about your background, who you are, and give an idea to the listeners of your creditability, as it were.
Okay, well, my name's Andrew Barrett. I'm currently an endpoint assessor at British Marine and OAL. And my background is boat building. From 2005, I've worked in education on the East Coast, working at different colleges. I ended up I worked at Lowestoft College as a boat building lecturer, and after that, I worked at the IBTC in Alton Broad, which was a private boat building college. There was also one in Portsmouth. I was basically running that. And then after that, I went back into being self-employed as a boat builder, back on the tools, as well as doing bits of endpoint assessment. So I'm now currently virtually full-time endpoint assessment work is what I do.
Brilliant. Owen, would you mind just giving us a brief overview of what you do in your EPA and training coordinator role?
Yeah, so my name's Owen. I am the EPA and training coordinator at British Marine. My job is to help apprentices get through the endpoint assessment process from start to finish. So from submitting their first kind of gateway documents to all the way to issuing results. Obviously try to make that sort of process as seamless as possible, as efficient as possible, with the apprentice always at the forefront of what we try and do.
Yeah, exactly. And as everyone's sort of aware, if you've listened to the other episodes, my current role is a independent endpoint assessor, again for British Marine and OAL, and I predominantly look after marine engineering and marine electrical. So those are the avenues. Now, the endpoint assessment process itself can be a little bit daunting. So, in essence, all apprenticeship standards, to my recollection, have this, but particularly in marine. So you would do your qualifications through your apprenticeship. You will do your formal qualifications if that's with Sitting Guilds, SQA, EAL, whatever it might be. And then at the end, you'll go through an EPA process, and the EPA process was brought in primarily just to validate the training and the qualification. I think that's the right sort of route, isn't it, Owen?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, and so in essence, it's a series of assessments by an independent person to complete a sign off, and every sort of standard's ever so slightly different. And it can be quite a daunting sort of task. Now, the EPA process itself, as Owen you sort of explained, that once you've got all your qualifications, etc., can you just give us sort of an overview of what that initial process looks like? So the student gets their quals, they're hypothetically finished their training with the training provider. Can you just sort of go through what the stages are to get the EPA process off the ground?
Yeah. So obviously, when you first finish all of your bits and bobs to kind of get you through all of your qualifications, you'll finish off with the job hours and everything like that. You then kind of move into Gateway. So Gateway is our area of submitting your documents of your qualifications for the endpoint assessment organization to check. After these have been checked, you'll be allocated an assessor. So that could be anyone. So, for example, if you're in a boat building standard, you could get Andrew as your assessor. From there, you are kind of pushed through into a planning meeting. So this is a time for you to ask any questions on anything you might be unsure of. Obviously, this will be with your assessor, so it's a good chance to get all of the information that you need. It'll also be the time where you set dates based on availability for your full assessments. And then it's just moving through dependent on kind of standard, which assessments you'll be partaking in. Then after those assessments are finished, then that'll be it. You'll be done. We try and make it as efficient as possible. But yeah, so any kind of questions should be going to your assessor.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, isn't it? I always say during the planning meeting to the students I have, I can't lead you anyway. I can't give you any advice and guidance. This is your time to demonstrate your skills. So if I sit there looking really grumpy, well, I've either had a bad day, but normally it's not. It's literally just we can't lead you. And vast majority of assessors will want to give you every single possible opportunity to demonstrate your competency. We're not there to fail people. Our job isn't to make it difficult. Our job is to empower you and to give you those opportunities to succeed. So again, the EPA process can be quite strenuous. Now, and for each standard, you can go onto the IFATE website and search the associated apprenticeship standard that you're looking for. So, for example, if you go onto the Institute of Apprenticeships website, the IFATE website, you are able to Google those apprenticeships you're looking to find information on. So, for example, marine electrician, as that's sort of one of the standards that I lead on, which is ST 0808. You can download what we call the assessment plan, and that assessment plan will outline the gateway process, the qualification requirements, the assessment methods, the order in which they go through. So I think what we'll do now is we'll start talking about the different standards. So Andrew, shall we start with boat building? Shall we talk about what the requirements are for the submission and what the three elements for the assessment for the boat builder?
There's the boat builder goes through a portfolio. Once the portfolio has been marked to a high standard, within the portfolio there's 90 what we call KSBs. These are knowledge, skills and behaviours. These are basically the criteria that you go through as a boat builder that you've got to meet. And there are basically 90 points in that criteria that you have to meet. You said it's a strenuous job to do when you're coming to the end of your assessments to do the EPA. This is not a giveaway. However, I think if the apprentice knows their job and they've worked hard at their apprenticeship, they have absolutely nothing to worry about. So where are we at, Owen, with that?
So once that portfolio is assessed, they'll get their feedback, won't they? And it'll outline which KSBs they've achieved, which KSBs they're outstanding.
Yeah.
And they take that feedback and move if they've hit a minimum set number of KSBs.
Yeah. We like round about 70 out of the 90 KSBs to be hit in order for them to progress. If there's any less than that, it makes it difficult to get through the interview and the actual presentation that they do, which is, we use it as a mopping up exercise for extra questions, but we also use that just to test other bits of the apprentice to see, if they really know their stuff. And we don't expect the apprentice to know absolutely everything, because if I was to be asked questions on boat building, there would be certain questions I still couldn't ask now, and I've been in the industry a long time. We don't expect them to know everything in great detail, but we expect them to have an understanding or know of it. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, we're after. We assess holistically. I think that's the important factor. It is a holistic assessment. We understand that people come from different job roles, or not job roles in essence, but different companies who have different outlines. So they pass their portfolio. I'm sure they will. But in the event they don't, they'll get their feedback back and they'll be given an opportunity to resubmit. Okay, so that it isn't just fail, job done, that's it. Sorry, you do get another go. But for those who do succeed and pass, what are the next two assessment methods? Because if I remember rightly, they're sort of done together.
Yep. Yep. You get a presentation, which we do first. So I will turn up on site, introduce myself to the apprentice or apprentices, depending on how many there are at the particular place. And they will have a presentation set up for me, ready to go. Usually in the form of a PowerPoint. They don't have to use a PowerPoint. They can do it in whatever manner they like. But everyone I've had so far has chosen a PowerPoint. And within that presentation, they will tell me about the project that they've done and tell me about the work they've done. And within that, they will actually start to slip in, if they've hit 70 KSBs and they still need to meet another 20, they'll probably manage to fit in another 5 to 10 KSBs within that, within the actual presentation that they do. And then after that, once that's over, we then have a short break, and then we go into a question and answer session, basically. And we mop up the final questions there. And that's around about 30 minutes, because the presentation and the questioning will take round about an hour, give or take 10% on that. And if that's all successful at the end of it, we go through, I fill in the paperwork. My paperwork gets what's called IQ8, internal quality assurance, and to make sure that my judgments are correct and solid, and to give me feedback on the work I'm doing to make sure that's up to standard. And if all that's great, the results will go out to the student within, is that 7 days, Owen? Or is it 14 for the boat builder?
I think it depends on the endpoint assessing organisation. So each endpoint assessing organisation will have their sort of schemes. Now, for British Marine, it's 15 working days. The results will be out within, but other EPAOs will dictate their own settings depending on the size and what has to be done. But yeah, so that's very similar to it. We'll jump over to marine engineering now. So marine engineering is very similar to boat building. So marine engineering, what will happen is similar sort of process. You'll go to Gateway, which is that process of notifying the EPAO of the apprentice coming to their endpoint assessment. Someone like Owen will issue out that initial comms, and we'll have that planning meeting. But this one's slightly different. At the planning meeting, we discuss what we call the project or report overview. Now, report overview, the topic as written within the standard, is a series of a job or a series of up to 3 jobs where you're going to try and select jobs that you've done, ideally in the last 6 months. However, it can be longer away. But again, we sort of recommend last 6 months for validity, authenticity, all of the buzzwords that are there. And then you will be given 8 weeks to basically write the report. Here, however, we have what we call mandatory KSBs, so KSBs that can only be achieved in the report, and that needs to be the main focus of the report. The other KSBs that hopefully you can achieve around that subject are brilliant as well. Knock off as many as you can, but the mandatory ones, if you don't achieve those, will prevent you moving forward. So that's agreed at the planning meeting, and as Owen said, also the other dates. So you get 8 weeks to do that report, 4,000 words plus 10%. What typically happens? Apprentices leave it to the last week. This is just the way it is. However, our advice is always get it done and dusted. Get it out of the way when it's live, when it's fresh in your mind. Get the report done. Work with your colleagues, your other fellow apprentices. Work with your training provider. Work with your company, and go through it. Work together in terms of advice and guidance. It is an independent piece of work. It is your own work, so plagiarism isn't accepted. But they are there to support and guide you through. With that, similar to boat build, I'm sure you get to submit what we call appendices, which are supporting evidence, and these can be really effective. These can be methods of you supporting evidence that can demonstrate competency without utilizing your word count in full. For example, you might refer to health and safety, which is CK2, and in your annexes, there's lots of evidence of risk assessments or other aspects which can help support it. Likewise, that will then come back to an independent assessor like myself, where we will mark it against a grading script, which is basically the same as the mapping document you're provided at point of gateway anyway. And you'll then get your feedback on the KSBs that have been achieved or not achieved, and the feedback will give you a justification as to why not, without leading you on how to fix the problem. And then, likewise with boat building, we then go on to a presentation and a structured interview, which is anything from about 10 working days later. And within that presentation, it's a minimum of 7 minutes, maximum of 10 minutes, around those KSBs that haven't been achieved, but can be achieved in the presentation. That can get confusing sometimes, where people put some of the KSBs that aren't as accessible within the presentation, and the standard will say it's structured interview only. So do be careful when you're reading through the standard to make sure you know which KSBs can be assessed to where. And then after the presentation, we normally have 2 follow-up questions, where we're just mopping up the last remaining bits. And then we go into the structured interview, which is the last bit of the assignment or the assessment, where we are doing the KSBs that can only be achieved in the structured interview, and those that have not been achieved. And and very similarly to what you said, Andrew, we then get IQA'd, marked, and then someone like Owen will issue the results. So again, I think we both work very similarly. It's all about giving every opportunity for the apprentice to demonstrate those skill sets, and the structured interviews are not a two-way conversation. It is a little bit unusual. It is you get asked a question and you're just left to answer it. We might ask a follow-up question. Don't be alarmed. We might reword it. We might readdress you. And again, that's just us trying to give you every possible opportunity to demonstrate your competency. And we're not just going to let them suffer in silence. Again, that's not what we're about. But we do have limitations on what we can say and what we can't do. Isn't that right, Andrew?
Yeah. We are not allowed to lead in any way. There was a time when we weren't even allowed to acknowledge or encourage in any way, but now the rules have changed a little bit on that. So we can acknowledge and say yes, okay, or things like that. But there was a time when we just had to remain silent and poker faced, which was I couldn't manage it. I couldn't do it. I failed every time. It's impossible when you've got an apprentice there that you want the best for them when you're doing it, and you can see them struggling, and you think, oh, it's okay, that's good. Come on, next question. Just a little bit of gentle encouragement. I don't think there's any harm in.
Yeah, there's certainly a human element to it. We're not, it's not left to people to sit there and suffer. I've had scenarios where I've had to speak to the apprentice, and I've said to you, you don't have to sit here and keep doing it. It's your assessment. It's your thing. I'm here to support you. But you've got to think about your mental health. And it is an anxious sort of period. So moving on then, the other we can sort of talk about is the marine boatyard operative. So Andrew, could you just give us a brief overview of that standard?
Well, the marine and boatyard operative is for people that want to work in the marine industry. Sometimes this job's done alongside being a boat builder or an engineer. It can sometimes be an add-on, but a lot of places now want people that are marina and boatyard operatives. And what that means, they work in the marina, they put boats in the water, they take boats out of the water, they'll jet wash, power wash them down, they'll anti-foul the boats, they'll move boats around, and general harbour duties and the safety of people and instructing people in the safety of wearing life jackets when they're going out on boats. There's an array of different businesses that offer different types of roles, but the marina and boatyard operative tends to cover people that are working in a marina or a boatyard that are not actually on the tools, so to speak, as an engineer or a boat builder or an electrician. These guys are on the coalface dealing with customers, taking boats in and out, and doing basic maintenance on boats, fueling them up, filling them up with water, and keeping customers happy. So the route to that is very similar to the boat builder and engineer, except they do a portfolio to start off with. The portfolio isn't assessed like it is in the boat builder. The portfolio is read through to make sure it's of a decent standard. And that is then used to ask questions to the apprentice later on in a structured interview where they also do a short presentation to you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's level 2, isn't it?
It's a level 2. It's a great qualification, though. It's some of the marina boatyard operatives I've assessed they've been absolutely brilliant. And I think it's a great qual for people to do. It's a great pathway to take. So yeah,
I think that's level 2. The boat builders and marine engineers level 3. So the last one we're going to talk about is marine electrician. So marine electrician is a little bit different. Again, level 3 qualification. Same principle in terms of the going to gateway and bits and bobs. But here you submit a portfolio of evidence at gateway, which again is slightly different. A little bit similar to marine boatyard operative, and this portfolio of evidence is to underpin the interview. So the 3 elements for the assessment for marine electrician is a multiple choice test, a structured interview. Both elements have to be passed before going on to a practical. Now, the portfolio of evidence is just evidence that has been gathered over the period of time the apprentice has been an apprentice within their job. It does not have to necessarily be job reports. It can be evidence such as health and safety policies, risk assessments, images of jobs. It can be videos, all sorts. Again, refer to the Marine Electrical Apprenticeship Standard on IFA ST 0808 for guidance on the evidence. But in essence, you'll have a planning meeting, agree the dates as per usual. And then the first thing to do is a multiple choice test. And the multiple choice test has got a pass mark requirement of 75%. Now, so you need to achieve 30 out of 40, but the questions are split into 2 banks. You get 30 multiple choice questions, and you get 10 scenario-based questions. However, the 75% pass mark is out of the 40 questions in total, not in each section. The structured interview, again, it's slightly different, to be honest. It is a maximum time of 60 minutes plus 10% to allow you to finish your last answer, but weirdly, a minimum of 60 minutes. So this one, it's the full whack. It's the full 60 minutes, and it can be quite full on. However, in the marine electrician standard, the KSBs can only be achieved in each individual assessment. So, for example, those that are being assessed in the multiple choice test should all be achieved, 100% achievement rate in a multiple choice test, and the structured interview and the practical. So there's no carryover. So on successful completion of the structured interview and the multiple choice test, you then go on to what we call the practical. And the practical encompasses the opportunity to demonstrate a range of skills, but you will be given a scenario, a task to be completed. It will give you the background. It will give you the data you need. And you will be given the tools and the equipment required to complete a circuit. So you'll be given the task. The apprentice has to create a solution, draw that solution as a wiring diagram, build the solution. However, the spanner in the works is there are faulty components within the project. So not only do they have to build the solution, they then have to fault find their own solution before completing a complete working system. And we're assessing lots of different things there. We're assessing preparing the work area. We're assessing the apprentice's ability to find a solution, to fault find, to reinstate the work area, but just to name a few. And the practical takes up to, you get a maximum time of 4 hours. And then subsequently, there is a short answer test, which is made up of approximately 10 short answer questions, and you get an hour to do that. And again, it's assessed holistically. The big difference with marine electrician, however, is the fact that the qualification, the City and Guilds qualification, is tied into the standard. So Unit 312, if I remember rightly, outcome 5, you can only achieve when you complete the endpoint assessment process. So again, you can't actually get your formal full qualification until you complete the qualification. And again, what happens is, as endpoint assessing organizations, they will send off the evidence to City and Guilds to demonstrate the knowledge and that the key outcomes have been met within the KSB and those outcomes. So that gives you an overview of the 4 sort of key apprenticeships in marine that myself, Andrew, and Owen are currently working on. There are plenty of others. As I said, you can go to our websites, britishmaritime.co.uk, and look at the education tab, which is underneath careers, and that will give you a bigger range of apprenticeships. And you can also find guidance on different apprenticeships at British Marine. Okay, so British Marine's website can give you all the guidance again on the different apprenticeships and standards that are available, and likewise for other EPAOs who are performing marine specialisms. Owen, what do you typically see as the big stumbling blocks in EPA that we perhaps we can give a bit of guidance on, primarily again Gateway, I suppose?
I would definitely say one of the biggest that I've seen during my time is people not taking notice of the KSBs when doing their assessments. Obviously, me myself, I have only recently passed my own apprenticeship of the business administration level 3. So I've kind of gone through the process. And the most important thing for me was making sure to read through the guidance that you receive. Obviously, with each standard, it will be different, but making sure that you hit every single KSB that you possibly can throughout every single part of the assessment, I definitely think is one of the most important things that you need to be doing.
No, I can't agree more.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. So from marine engineering and marine electrical point of view, I think the biggest bit of advice I would give is read through the standard. Read through the standard and the KSBs, because when you get to the interview, the questions are going to be about those KSBs. They will be. So the answers are almost in front of you. What's coming is almost in front of you. In terms of the report, again, classic is not marine engineering. The one that people fall down on is going to be the assignment where they haven't recognized the mandatory KSBs. I'd say that's the big one. And yeah, electrician, I would say the interview, making sure that you know the type of questions that are coming and go forth. A lot of the marine electricians, they get confident with the practical because it's what they're doing day in, day out. So those sort of aspects. What about boat builder and marine operative? Where do you see the biggest areas of weakness?
The boatyard operative, I've assessed probably about 7 or 8 at the moment, and the thing with that is I found the apprentices there have really known their stuff, and they've been so good that there's been absolutely no hiccups. However, with the boat builder, I've done a lot more assessments on that, and what I tend to find is people that you could tell people till you're blue in the face, as Owen said, read the actual KSBs, the knowledge, skills, and behaviour questions that come up. Because if you don't, you're not going to pass. I've had people write absolutely fantastic portfolios for me. They've done brilliant writing. You think, yeah, that's really good. However, I have to match all of these questions up against 90 KSBs that I have to tick boxes and find. Now, if they've written a beautiful portfolio that hasn't actually ticked on or covered any of those KSBs, they are not going to get through, and they are going to get that portfolio back, and I have to say, look at the KSBs as you're writing it. So what I'd suggest people do is they have the KSBs, the knowledge, skills and behaviours right there down in front of them. They read that and think, right, how did I cover that? And how am I going to get that into my write-up? So the health and safety one, yes, I abided by health and safety, blah, 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 blah. This is what I did. At the end of it, you've got your appendix where you can put cost data sheet, you can put cost sheets, data sheets, any health and safety that's relevant at the end of it to back up what you've actually been saying. So focus on what it actually says. I think we've stressed that enough now, haven't we, Owen?
You know what? At the end of the day, it's a process. It's a strenuous process, but it shouldn't be too challenging. You've done 3.5, 2 years, whatever it might be, whatever your apprenticeship length is. Your companies wouldn't have put you through, your training provider wouldn't have put you through unless they had confidence in you and you've demonstrated the skills. So go into it with a bit of confidence. So Owen, what's your parting message, if you like, for anyone who's coming up to their endpoint assessment? What advice would you give them?
I would say just making sure you're prepared, making sure you have everything that you need kind of ready, make sure you have all of the knowledge filled. If you have any knowledge gaps, fill them. Make sure you're reading through skills and behaviors. Obviously, those will be quite telling if say you're having an observation, then you'll be able to tell. So we can kind of just make sure you're reading through, basically, and best of luck. So,
Andrew?
Yeah, well, you can tell when an apprentice hasn't read the instructions because you're getting all this stuff through. So I would say if you know your job and you've worked hard, you've got absolutely nothing to worry about. If you turned up for college and you've gone to your lectures and you have read the documents thoroughly so you understand the process, everything will be fine. We very rarely have issues with apprentices failing because they don't understand it, but that's usually because we've put a lot more work into actually explaining it. But I think if you know your stuff, you read your documents, you understand the process and what you've got to do, then you've got absolutely nothing to worry about and you'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view is just one thing. When as assessors, and I can only speak to the people here, but in generally, all the people I've sort of come across, we're not here to try and fail people. It's not what we're here about. We're just here to ensure that you can demonstrate those key skills, knowledge, skills, and behaviours, that you are competent, because it is a grueling world out there, and marine is unforgiving at times, but it is fantastic at the same time. So we need to ensure that competency is there. That is our role, but we will give you every possible opportunity to demonstrate those skill sets. Rewording questions, probing to find evidence, and working with you. So thank you both very, very much for joining me on this episode on the podcast all about endpoint assessment. It just leaves me to wrap up and say, if anyone has enjoyed this podcast and you feel that you can give a little bit back, please do go to the bottom of the britishmaritime.co.uk podcast page, and if you can give any money to our charity of the year, which is for this year, that'll be great. And we are currently giving back to young people who can't afford to access maritime training and education. So please do that. And we look forward to speaking and hearing from you in the future.